Well, regarding our first story of the U.S. has announced plans to allocate special funding for Middle Eastern and North African countries with ongoing upheavals. We're now going to be joined by Ralph Schoenman, political commentator. Mr. Schoenman, thank you for joining us on World News. The Obama administration wants to allocate $800 million for political reforms in both the Middle East and North Africa. How is it that the U.S. feels they have the right to play the role of the big brother for the rest of the world?
Well, I think we should be clear about what this $800 million figure represents. It's above the declaration of funds and above board, as it were. But the real funding is $8.2 billion, the special fund for war zones. And the $800 million is an interference fund for supporting political elements that are friendly to American imperialism and its objectives. But what we have to keep our eye on as $800 million is thrown about is $8.2 billion, the special fund for war zones. And that number is servicing operations such as are taking place in Syria right now with Qatar and Turkey, with Libyan arms, with French and British special forces carrying out armed attacks, which are then imputed to the government in Damascus as well, and like operations prepared for Iran. I should point out in today's New York Times, a lead story has Admiral William McRaven, who is the Chief of Special Operations Command, declaring that he wants a free hand for a larger role of what are called elite units that traditionally operate in the dark. This is a war agenda funded in the multi-billions of dollars, not $800 million, which is simply a number that is intended to represent economic assistance or bribery money for political elements. But the real operations are these military funds, these special forces funds, and this war provocation, which is escalating with every minute.
And also, we're seeing countries that have an alliance with the U.S. are asking them not to interfere at this point in their internal affairs. And we're seeing this with such as Egypt and now even Pakistan, which receives aid from the U.S. and they're fed up with U.S. interference. Are they not trying to send a message out to America?
Well, I would say about the situation in Egypt that the United States is fully backing the military in Egypt to the hilt. But what is at work here is competition for funds and competition for the group in Egypt that will service the U.S. and gain the most support from the U.S. Any involvement of the United States and its funding in Egypt is designed to abort the process through which the people of Egypt regain command over their political and economic life. Nothing but the subjugation of the population is behind that agenda. I should point out, for example, that as we speak, in Bahrain, the special forces of the United States are helping the Bahraini forces suppress the Bahraini population on the anniversary of its demonstrations, while King Khalifa is demanding of President Assad in Damascus that he should listen to his population. I think that speaks volumes about what the real agenda is of the United States, whether in Egypt or in Bahrain or in Syria or with respect to Iran.
And just briefly, also, what about when there's a problem, if we look at the other aspect of it, when there's a problem in the U.S., who's supposed to play the role of the big brother? Right now we're seeing the Occupy Wall Street movement growing, peaceful protests, police are reacting violently. Should other countries be involved in the U.S. now?
Well, actually, I think peoples all over the world should be joining with the population in the United States in fighting back against the less than 1% of the population that owns more than 99% of the rest of us combined. And that's the anthem of the Occupy movement in the United States. It reaches out to the people in Egypt. It reaches out to the people throughout the Arab East. It reaches out to the people of Iran to join in struggle against the attempts to subjugate populations and to subordinate them to the designs of an imperial clique that has power in the United States and in Western Europe as well. Those are the real issues.
Very well. Thank you for that, Ralph Schoenman, political commentator, joining us right here on Press TV's World News.